Hey everybody, welcome to week 4 of our Sunday school program in Illustrated Earth. We have been talking about water, and today is no exception. We are talking about storms today, and what greater luck do I have than to have a day where we were having a storm to talk about it. And when we think of storms, it's usually what? It's usually like a big rainstorm with thunder and lightning, or it could be a big snow blizzard storm. And today it's very cold out here, and I believe we were supposed to have ice with the temperatures, and so everybody got to stay home from school today, which was pretty great because it is pretty miserable out here. It's actually still raining right now, which is water, part of our great God's earth. So I have like a little game here. It's a true or false questions regarding storms. And when you think about it, we're going to talk kind of like about a hurricane. So that's a big water event, usually in and around the oceans. So tell me if these facts are true or false. Number 1, the safest place to be when you are in a hurricane is in the basement of your house. Two, if a hurricane is coming, you should make sure that you have a portable electric stove. False. It would be better to have a gas stove because people often lose electricity during big storms. 3, the eye of the hurricane is the worst part of the storm. False. The eye is the center of the hurricane where there's no wind blowing, so it's not the worst part of the storm. 4, if a window or a door is open during a hurricane, winds can lift off the roof of a house. True. A house should be shut tight to be able to survive the wind pressure. 5, the best place to be during a hurricane is on a boat. False. That is one of the worst places you can be because storms pick up momentum as they come out of the ocean and then land on shore. So you do not want to be on a boat during a hurricane. Okay, I have another question. This one's multiple choice, so I'm going to ask the question, I'm going to give you a couple of answers, and you choose the best answer. What is the first thing you should do when you hear a hurricane is coming? 1, scream and cry for your mom. 2, dig a giant tunnel in the ground and try to get all the way to China. 3, check the weather reports to see how bad the storm is supposed to be and either prepare your house and stay there, or you can prepare your house and then decide that maybe you should evacuate and go somewhere else while the storm goes through your town. 4, buy a lot of water and food and hide in the basement. Well, the best answer is 3. Did you choose 3? You want to check the weather reports and make sure you prepare your house. And if you are told by your local authorities that the best, safest plan is to evacuate, then that's what you should do. You did a great job with these. Good job. So today we are going to be talking about a really bad storm. I wonder if you figured that one out. And in this storm, Jesus' disciples were in the worst place they could possibly be. Do you remember from our questions where that is? What's the worst place you can be during a storm? Right, a boat. That's exactly where Jesus' disciples were because they were going to head to the other side of this lake. And Jesus had been teaching all day, and the whole crowd of people had been there listening. And it had been such a long day that Jesus decided that they should get into a boat and go to the other side of the Sea of Galilee and take a break. He just needed to have some quiet time to take a break and concentrate all of his thoughts And so that's what they decided to do. Now, I want you to remember that Jesus was extremely popular because of all the miracles that he did and the things that he taught, and he was surrounded by people regardless of where he went. And kind of like all the crazy fans that scream when they see their favorite celebrity or rock star, Jesus didn't push his fans away or tell them to stop screaming. But there had just become a point where Jesus really had to get some rest. And he and his disciples took a boat across this lake and he fell asleep. And I think it's pretty easy to understand why. He'd been teaching all day long, and he probably answered a gazillion questions from all of his fans and everybody who wanted to know more about what he was teaching. So, yeah, even though Jesus is God, he was still human too, so he was just totally exhausted. Now, Jesus' disciples couldn't just turn on a TV set and find out what was going on and to hear and learn that there was this really big storm coming. So they had no idea that it was on its way. And when the storm came, it totally took them by surprise. There were fishermen, they were fishermen and knew water and boats, so they probably had dealt with some storms before. But this one was like a monster storm, and they were like super scared, and they just didn't have any idea of really what to do. And it was getting nighttime, and it was really scary, and the waves started crashing over the side of the boats as the wind howled, and the boat started filling with water, and oh my gosh, how terribly scary. What would you have done at that point? I probably would be crying because I'd be so scared. And holding on to somebody, I hope. I would have had somebody on the boat with me that would made me feel safe. Well, what the disciples did was they started throwing everything overboard that they could in order to try and save the boat from sinking underwater. And I'm talking their supplies, their food, and their equipment, and maybe even like their fun stuff, like you think they had PlayStations or toys back then? No, but they were getting rid of everything that they thought to help save the boat. And there was Jesus with them, but he was asleep, just kind of snoozing on the pillow off to the side. And how could he sleep during such a massive, scary storm? I know some people who are really heavy sleepers. And I've even heard of people that sleep with seatbelts over them, or somebody who's fallen asleep during a movie, like an action movie, and they didn't even wake up when their chairs were moving and stuff. And so this storm was way worse than any of that, and the boat was all about to tip over, and still Jesus was totally crashed out, just totally snoozing. So the disciples decided that it was time. They needed to go wake up Jesus, and because they were scared out of their minds, and they were thinking that they were about to die. This boat was going down, and they were goners. So they probably shouted something out to him like, "Jesus, wake up! We're about to drown. Don't you even care?" Probably something pretty crazy and dramatic like that, right? And they were really surprised about what Jesus did next. He didn't get up and start screaming and be like, "Oh my gosh, we're all gonna die," and panic like probably most of us would. No, he wasn't even worried. He was totally cool. And he simply got up and he said, "Quiet, be still." And you're never gonna guess what happened. Give it a try though. What do you think happened next? The sea instantly went calm. The wind went away, and the waves sunk back into the smooth, glassy surface of the lake. And just like that, Jesus spoke, and the storm ended. After Jesus calmed the storm, he said, "Why were you guys so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" The disciples had been with Jesus and had seen his miracles and what he was capable of doing. Now, I don't know about you, but I think I would love to have that kind of power. Like, if your house is a mess, no problem, just say, "Be clean." some bully's about to attack, you just call out, "Stay still," or "Be quiet," or "Go away." And he stops right there, or poof, disappears. It sure would be useful to have power like that. So imagine when the disciples saw what Jesus said and how the earth and the water and the storm reacted. What do you think they thought? They were probably totally blown away. Yeah, and they probably might have even freaked out a little bit. And whether you wanted to, perhaps you were a little starstruck and wanted to be like, get his autograph like a celebrity. Or they might have been really freaked out and wanted to like get away from him as fast as possible. And to be honest, they were kind of freaked out. They were actually terrified of the fact that Jesus could calm a storm just by talking. And they even started talking behind Jesus's back, saying things like, what kind of guy is this? And, even the wind and the waves, they do what he said. It was really obvious by their reaction that they really didn't know or understand who Jesus was, even though they spent a lot of time with him. And it's kind of like, imagine if you had, do you know who Peter Parker is? If you had Peter Parker in your house and you didn't know that he was Spider-Man, or if you had Diana Prince in your house and you didn't know that she was Wonder Woman. It's kind of like that. Many people saw Jesus as just this regular guy because that's what he looked like. And he was like any other human on earth. But his powers are limitless because he's God. And many of us don't really realize what God is capable of. The fact is, nothing is impossible for God. And he can do way more than what we can even imagine he can do. Now, this could kind of scare you like it did with the disciples, because it means that God is way more powerful than you or I and can punish anybody when they're doing wrong. However, the Bible says that God is love, which means he loves us so very much and often uses his great power to help us. So I wonder if you have a storm that's kind of going on in your life right now. We're all dealing with a lot of drama with being at home, and maybe some of us are staying home from work and school still because of the pandemic and the drama and problems and complications that all solves, and not being able to see our family and friends. We have a lot of storms happening right now, and I think this would be the good time when we can call in and pray to God and talk to Jesus and ask for him to help us bring in that calm. Do you think that maybe if we talk to him, he could help us fix these problems or help us cope a little bit better with what we have to deal with in the world right now? Or do you think crying and screaming and acting in panic, maybe even being a little depressed, is what would work better to solve these problems? Do you think that would be the best way to approach God? Or even to, maybe some people might think that he's not even listening, which he always is. So think about how we can try and work with God and Jesus in our thoughts and in our hearts on how we can weather our storms a little bit better. Because I want to tell you, God really does care. But you must ask him and talk to him for help in calming the storm and having the trust and faith that he will help us in time. And you don't want to try and fix all your problems by yourself. That's really hard, and it can get overwhelming. And whether you reach out to your mom and dad or your grandparents, your friends, your teachers, a trusted adult, or your friends even, take the time to sit and talk with God and ask for His insight and help so that we can weather any storm together. Okay, so today's project, since we're talking about a storm, Jesus and his disciples on the Sea of Galilee in a boat, we are going to make origami boats. This is so cool. And the great thing about it is all you need is a piece of paper. So you can see on mine, I used recycled paper, but you can use plain copy paper, or if you have some printed pretty paper, you can use that. This is super easy, so we're gonna have a ton of fun doing this. All right, so you're gonna take your paper, and the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna fold it in half so that it looks like this, okay? Super easy. Just fold it, and then the next thing, the second fold is we're gonna fold it in half again. So fold it in half again, and I just like to make my folds real sharp, so we have that. Okay. So your paper should look like this, okay? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take these two corners and we're gonna fold them inwards like we're making a paper airplane. So we'll just take the first corner and take it towards the middle and fold that down. And then take the other corner and bring that down, just like you're making an airplane. And then you're gonna get those folds down and it looks like this. And you'll see you have, it starts to open and you have this little strip, this rectangle down at the bottom. What we're gonna do is we're gonna fold each of those up on either side. So this first one, you're gonna take up and we're gonna fold like this, and then the second one we're gonna fold towards the back. So, fold it up like this. Oh, I just ripped my paper. I'm sure it will be fine. Okay, and then flip it over and you're gonna make that even with the other side. And this may look like something you could actually put on your head. Haha, paper hat. If you wanted to keep the paper hat, you could do that. But we are going to make this into a boat. So the next thing you have to do is you're going to take your fingers in the middle of the sides and you're gonna pull it so you make it into a diamond shape. And when you do that, you wanna tuck one of these corners in so it lays flat. You can see mine already kind of did it on its own, so I'm just gonna make that. So now you have a diamond, okay? And you can see it opens up at the bottom like that. And we have our diamond. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this bottom edge and we're going to fold them up and make a triangle. So here we go, bringing that up and folding that down, and then flip it over and bring that other corner up. So now you have a triangle. Okay, so now it should look like this. And if you open it up just a little bit, you can see it looks like that. Okay? Now, here comes the fun part, and I'll go slow. I have my fingers on the corner, and you can see if I push in, it kind of gives. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna fold it and bring these two ends together. And we're just making that triangle. Have it in a triangle. We're putting it back into a diamond. Okay? This was the tricky part for me. All right. So now we have a diamond again. And the last step that we have is you have 2 points up at the top. Okay? And if you pull gently from the sides, pull them out. Ta-da! You have your boat. Just flatten it down a little bit. And I kind of do that. And ta-da! Your boat. Do-do-do, we have a boat. And Jesus was sleeping over here. And his disciples over here were freaking out. So, oh, since I said that, what do you suppose you would have been like if you were on a boat in the sea? and your captain of the boat was sleeping and you had this huge storm, I would be panicked. Absolutely panicked. Yep, I would be panicked. And why were the disciples afraid? They're probably afraid of their safety, right? If they were going to live or die or what was going to happen. And what do you think about how Jesus responded to them? He was very calm, and he calmed the storm. So what do you think their conversation was like after the storm just kind of settled down and the disciples calmed down and they finally got to the other side of the Sea of Galilee? What do you think those conversations were like? Probably pretty intense, huh? That's what I would think. And what do you do, or how do you feel like you can depend on God when you're afraid, or you have some fear, or you're stressed out and overwhelmed? For me, I like to get quiet and I like to pray, or some people meditate, which is very similar to praying. And they're both all about quieting down, finding a peaceful place and letting your thoughts and talking to God and waiting to see if you get an answer. Sometimes you'll get inspiration, and I think that inspiration comes from God to help us solve our problems. So, yeah, maybe you should, if you're going to try and make a little boat, think about those things and talk with your parents or your friends and see what they say and what their answers are. So, but yeah, now I have a whole arsenal, naval fleet of origami boats. Practiced a lot. It was fun. And if nothing else, you can make a hat. So I hope you had fun. And yeah. Thanks for joining me today for our last lesson in water of the Illustrated Earth series of our Sunday school program. Next week, we're going to be talking about some plants. So I'm pretty excited about that. So if you will please join me in prayer as we bring this lesson to a close. Dear God, whether you calm the storms in our lives or give us the courage to face them, we give you thanks for your strength, peace, and comfort that cover our fears. Amen. All right, everybody, I hope you have a great week. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye.